Hi, welcome back. Here we are. This is actually our our fifth shiur on the longest shiur.com. We're going for a record 18 hours and the longest in recorded history of a straight Torah shiur. We're doing this mishagas solely for the purpose of raising awareness and support for Jewish education. We're trying to get to 250,000 today, and we appreciate your support. You could donate online, longestshir.com, or if you can text in to 41444, the word Torah. Instructions will follow, and we'll take it from there. I want to announce the winner of the last contest of the biggest donor, and that was Joel Bess wins the barrel wine set of Jewish history books. Barrel wine set of Jewish history books. The winner of this hour, in honor of our last shiur, the winner of this coming hour will win the Art Scroll Treasury of Hasidic Tales, a multi-volume set. Don't all fight at once to win that amazing gift. We're going to get that out to you. We'll be able to send it. Also want to announce that anybody who donates this hour an amount above $50, we'll be sending you a copy of Judaism Alive. That's right. Judaism Alive coming your way at your door. Any donation over $50. All right. Let's talk next. Here we go. Whew. Black Mamba and the Babe. What's so spiritual about sports? There's a lot to say in this hour, so let's see what we get through. What does God think of sports? What does God think of sports? What folder do we put it in? Good thing, mitzvah, not a mitzvah, waste of time, or neutral? Is there even a neutral folder of things that are not mitzvah but not a waste of time? Just Is it in the category? Where is sport? What do we do with it? Where is sports? First of all, the obvious positive from being engaged in sports directly is v'tishmor et nafsho seichem, that one, our bodies, right? The pasuk in Dvarim, Perek Daled, pasuk Tes, Rak hishamer lecha ushmor nafshecha me'od pein tishka dvarim shereinecha. Preserving your body helps you learn Torah, makes you healthier. That requirement would seem to make room for the involvement in sports. But just using the argument of health is going to be limiting. Why? Because maybe arguing that standing in right field for 2 hours on a baseball diamond is not maximizing what this verse is getting at, as opposed to something more intense and more grueling. So let's try a different way. Maybe the second avenue to look at is there's something amazing about God's awesome creations. What do I mean? The Gemara says in Brachos Mem Zayin, Amud Beis. Truth is, I went too quick about the health element. I don't want to underplay the importance of health in Jewish observance. The Rambam in Hilchos Deos, Perek Daled, Halacha Aleph, says as follows. Hoil v'hiyot haguf bari v'shalom midarchei Hashemhu. Right? You need to have a good, healthy body. Shari'in afshar shiyavin oyeda davar miyadiyas habore v'huchola. Because you can't understand knowledge of God while you're sick. Lafikach tzarek laharchik adam atzmo midvarim hama'avdin esaguf. Therefore, you got to stay away from things that obliterate and deplete the body. Ulahanhiga atzmo bidvarim hama'avrin machlim. You got to put yourself closer to things that make you better. La'olam lo yachal adam el shud. Only eat when you're hungry. Lo yishtel shud. Don't drink when you're thirsty. Va'al yishah nekav fil raga. Kolzman shetzarek lashin. Go to the restroom when you got to go. That's what you got to do. Be healthy. So the Rambam talks about it. The Beragola says as follows, that Hashem created the world with bechasto, with kindness, letachlis, for the purpose of doing good with these creations, and by not taking care of yourself, you're implying you don't want Hashem's tuvo. You don't want Hashem's goodness. So one needs to take care of themselves, and sports offer a good, positive way to do that. But again, just going down the road of health would eliminate a lot of the sports that don't seem to accentuate that. All right, here we go. Let's try a different route, okay? Gemara in Brachos 57b. Shlosha Meshivin Daito Shalodam. There are three things that restore the mind of a person. Eluhen. These are them. Kol, a voice. Mara, an appearance. And smell. There are three things that expand the das of an adam, right? A person needs to have an expanded mind in order to learn anything. These are they. Dira noah, a nice house. Isha noah, a nice spouse. V'kelim noim, and beautiful things. There is a value to beauty. There is a value to beauty. Kelim noim would include man-made beauty. Not just beauty created by God, like the mountains, the Alps. Have you seen God's Alps, like the famous Rav Hirsch story? No, there's a value to physical beauty. That's expressed. And there's something to be said for appreciating God's creations. The Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, Siman Reish Lamed Aleph says, Im I efshar lo lilmod below shinas tzaraim. If you can't learn without an afternoon nap, take a nap. Ukeshener mitzshinan, and what kind of bracha do you make when you get up, and so on and so forth. But then he says, V'chein b'chol mas sheyehena ba'olam hazeh. Whatever benefit you get from this world, lo yechav, don't do it just for yourself, but rather do it to serve God. B'chol derachecha de'ehu. There is a concept of doing things to come to appreciate God, to get hana from this world for the purpose of better appreciating God. The Rambam in Hilchos Deos talks about coming to God through his creations, coming to God through God's awesome, awesome creations. The Gemara in Kedushin, it's a Yerushalmi in Kedushin, Perek Daled, says as follows. Rav Chizkiah Rav Cohen B'Shem Rav says, Asur Ladur Be'ir, She'ein Bo Lo Rofe, you can't live in a city that doesn't have a doctor. Lo Merchatz, not a bathhouse. V'lo Beistin, and not a Beistin. Right? You need all those. Amar Ravasi Barabun. Af Asur Ladur Be'ir She'ein Bo Ginusa Shel Yeri. Can't live in a place that would have vegetable garden. Rav Chizkiah Rav Cohen B'Shem Rav, Atid Otam, here's the key line. This is why I'm quoting Yerushalmi. Asid Adam Litain Din V'Cheshbon. In the future, a person is going to have to give Din V'Cheshbon Al Kol Masha Ra'asa Eino V'Lo Achal. For everything that your eyes saw but did not eat. Right? That you saw but did not eat. What? You got to eat everything? Mitzvah to eat everything? Korban Ha'eda says it's referring to needless asceticism. You don't want to get joy from the world? Then what did God put you here for? God put this world here for us to get benefit from. And one, in the Pnei Moshe, also a commentary in the Yerushalmi says, if you don't enjoy the things created by Hashem for man, it's like denying that which Hashem has put into the world. And in that sense, sports is some of that. Sports provides to see the greatness of what man can achieve, to see an amazing athlete. There's something profoundly spiritual to having witnessed and seen what Wayne Gretzky could do. An amazing thing. That's part of appreciating what God has created. An Olympic athlete, what an Olympic athlete is capable of doing. There's something profound in seeing that and seeing what that Olympic athlete could do. Okay, let's continue a little bit. Let's continue. Let's move along. I saw a great quote. It said, the record books never list the score at halftime. The record books never list the score at halftime. That's a very Jewish concept. The game is about how you finish, right? We have in Judaism the concept that a mitzvah al shem gomro, hakol holchen achar arosh. Yes, things go after the beginning, but hakol holech achar achisum. But it's also how you finish. It's also at the end, which is a very sports but Jewish-related idea. We know that Mark Bavaro got down on one knee when he caught his first touchdown pass, and it was in the Super Bowl. In his highlight moment, he bows down on one knee. The Maral, in the Gur Aryeh commentary to Vayigash, says, that's it. What do we do in the highlight moment of our life? What do we do in those highlight moments? What did Yaakov do at the moment of the highlight moment of his life when he saw Yosef once again? He was saying Kriya Shema. He was saying the Shema. Meaning he was asking himself, what should I do at the greatest moment of my life? At my greatest moment of Ava, what am I connecting with? What am I expressing? One sees that their sports moments or any significant moment of achievement in life is a vehicle by which they can express their Avas Hashem, by which they can express the awesomeness of the Rabbonu Shalom and what they've allowed them, what they've enabled them to do. There's so many concepts that come from sports. The concepts of asur lehisyayesh, that a person can't give up, to be relentless, not to give up. That's a hugely Jewish idea that we subscribe to, of staying strong, of being a shaktan, of diligence, of trying another day. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't go, not to give up, to go on it again. The ideas of passion and energy, the passion that people put into sports, the energy that people put into sports, there's something to be learned from that. There's a great comment to the Ksav Sofer. The Ksav Sofer, Ches, comments in the Gemara Avodah Zarah Beis Beis. It's also in Gemara Megillah Vav Mid Aleph. That in the future, God's going to take many of the nations of the world to din v'cheshbon. They're going to have to take an accounting for what they've done. And the nations of the world say, we did what we did to benefit the Jews. So was it? We built the theaters to benefit them. We built this to bridges to benefit the Jews. And each argument, God's going to do away with. Now, what would be the Havamina? What was the thought that they did any of this for the Jews? It's all self-serving stuff there. So the Ksav Sofer says, yes. They're claiming, granted, we did it to show off our money, our wealth, but our intent was also to do it for the Jews. Why? Because we put such excitement into these things. And that very energy and excitement that we put into all these other things, whether to build a theater, whether to build a coliseum, or for whatever else we did, could have been a lesson to the Jews of what you could do with your energy and passion. The Gemara Megillah Vav Mid Aleph says that God says in the future, in the times of Mashiach, we're going to learn Torah while sitting in theaters and coliseums. Why? Because that was a place that was used for such energy to get into the games, right? Right? You see people fighting over parking at a game, the energy. People want to get in there, tailgating party, they want to get in there. Now think about the fact how all of a sudden those very same parking lots, in those very same amphitheaters, you had a Siyam Hashas in the Meadowlands. Are we going to put the same energy into that like we would of going to a game? Rav Elchanan Wasserman in his Kobetz Ha'aros says as follows. He quotes the Chafetz Chaim, who quotes the Rashi at the beginning of Vayishlach. The Rashi on the pasuk, right? Rashi says, the pasuk says, "Im Lavan Garti." I lived with Lavan. Rashi adds, "Im Lavan Garti v'taryag mitzvah shamarti v'lo lamadati ma'aser haroim," and I didn't learn from his wicked ways. What does that mean? I lived with Lavan, but I didn't learn from his wicked ways. Meaning, here's a beautiful taich. Look at how much energy Lavan put into shtus, into utter stupidity. I should have learned to apply that in my mitzvahs, but I didn't. He was saying a negative. I didn't learn I should have learned at least from that. I should have learned. You could be a huge masmid, diligent, but you also need the passion. There's a great Rambam, actually, Hilchas Tshuva. The Rambam writes as follows. Hold on. Yeah, Rambam Hilchas Tshuva, Perek Dalid, Perek Beis Halacha Dalid. Rambam writes like this. He says the essence of tshuva, right? The essence of tshuva, the ikar yesod of tshuva, is ultimately the kavana, the passion, what you're going to feel behind it. It's one thing for you to say, "Sorry, I'm not going to do that again," or "I'm going to do it." But you have to feel the charata, you have to feel the remorse, the passion. That emotion are emotions that we learn very much. There's something to be said for the emotions, the energy, the passions that are put into it that we see that take place on the battlefield of sports, on the football field. Many of those same passions, the same commitments, the attention to detail, those kind of things could be adopted as far as our practices are concerned. Here's the question. We know that Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Torah beats everything. If there was a point system, Torah conquers all. There's no doubt about that. If I could rack up all the sources, you would see clearly Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Ki heim chayenu ve'orech yameinu. It's our life. So why waste your time on something of lesser value? That's the argument. The argument could be said, if Torah is the winner, Why do I waste my time with anything else? It's a mathematical analysis of Avodas Hashem. Why be involved in all this other neutral stuff if at the end of the day, Torah is much more powerful? So Rav Shlomo Karliner says like this: how come the holiest days of the year, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, how come we spend them saying these special prayers instead of spending the whole day learning Torah? Right? If Torah is the winner, why do we spend the whole day with these tefillos as opposed to just learning Torah? So he lays out a very important concept, and this Rav Shlomo Karliner is so important to remember. We're talking here about Shleimus Nishmas Yisrael. It's not always about where the most points comes from. It's about being a balanced human being. You have to sit in a sukkah. You have to read a Megillah. There are other things you ought to do. Yes, Torah is the most important. Yes, Torah is the most significant. But that doesn't mean everything else is worthwhile. There's a full package. Everything comes together. It has to be part of a full picture, a full tapestry, a full portrait. Shleimus ha'adam, that's key. Shleimus ha'adam. You're right. Does Torah win above everything else? Of course Torah wins above everything else, right? But that's not the question. The question is, how do you become a more whole person, a more whole human being, a more whole human being? I mean, we have a phrase in Pirkei Avos, hafech ba, the kula ba. Flip through it, because everything is there. So what does it mean? If everything is there, so why do I ever need anything else? So many Rishonim say that means all of Torah is within there, is within there. Meaning when a boiler breaks in the house, you don't call a posek. You still got to look up the You got to call a person who can fix the boiler. It doesn't mean, it just means, means at the deepest core, everything is in Torah. It doesn't mean we're going to find everything in there. And therefore, that's why you need other stuff in life. You need other parts to your life. There are many ways in Avodas Hashem, and they're all valid, and they include these other paths. And that path could include sports. Okay, let's go a little further. One of the pitfalls that we may worry about, though, is the issue when it comes to sports of leitzonos. Leitzonos. The prohibition of leitzonos is like, how would I translate leitzonos? Leitzonos, I would say in this case, means, is a non-academic translation, loafing. You can't, it's an issue to loaf. You ever see the video, you got to look it up on YouTube, of, what's their names? Who's the guy? Who's on first? Who's on second? Abbott and Costello, right? You got to see their loafing video. You're a loafer. Who's a loafer? You're not allowed to have loafing in the Torah. Where's the Isser to loaf? It's in Tehillim, Perek Aleph, Kapitel Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach ba'atzis rashayim. Praiseworthy is the person who doesn't go in the advice of the wicked. Ubederech chatayim lo amid. He doesn't stay on the ways of the sinners. Uva moshav leitzim lo yoshav. And he shouldn't sit with the leitzim. With the loafers. So what does that include? The Gemara in Avodah Zarah 18b says that going to bullfights or other frivolous activities, that is a violation of sitting in Moshav Leitzim. So now we have a problem. Right? Where does it, by the way, what's the line in the Gemara? The Gemara says you can't go to the Itztadinin. What are the Itztadinin? Rashi says, Mokum shemenakchem et ashor, where they have the bull, the chasing of the bull or whatever. So what does that mean? We can't sit at a game? We can't sit at a game? Huh? Rabbeinu Yonah, 13th century scholar, says, while normally the Pashut Pshat of leitzim means those who make fun of other things, a scoffer. However, there's a less severe form of leitzonos where people gather for something that's a complete waste of time and the gathering doesn't achieve anything productive. That's why the pasuk after this, Moshav leitzim lo yoshav, the next pasuk in Tehillim is, Ki'im b'toras Hashem cheftzo. Your desire should be Torah. Because we waste our time with these neutral, random things. So it's sort of making it a problem here. The Ramah in the Orach Chaim talks about halacha, that Moshav leitzim is a halacha. Hameshase kelev, Sicking a dog chase. They used to have some fun thing. They would do dog chasing. I don't know what it was. That's usser. That's Moshav Leitzim. You can't be part of dog chasing games. So what do we do? So the Rambam doesn't mention the Isser against going to bullfighting events. And the Rambam doesn't bring this halacha of Moshav Leitzim. However, when talking about the Isser of gambling for the Rambam, Hamisachek bekuvya im akum, ein bo Isser gezel. So gambling, let's say with someone's not Jewish, it's not stealing. Aval yesh bo Isser osek bedvarim betelim. But there's a separate problem. You're doing something that's bottle. What's the point? What are you gambling? You could be spending your time with divrei chachma and wisdom and yeshiva shalolam, productive matters. That's what the Rambam says. The Mishnah says, right? The Mishnah says, Pirkei Avos, Rabbi Yossie Amar, Yehei mamun chavercha chaviv alecha. The money of your friend should be important to you. You shall regard it with, it's his, you got to take care of it. V'hitkin atzmacha lilmud Torah. You need to prepare yourself to learn Torah, because it's not an inheritance to you. Don't just assume it's going to just come to you. V'chol masecha yu l'shem shemayim. And everything you do should be for the right kavanah. It's an important line. It's Pirkei Avos, Perek Bet, Pasuk Yud Bet, Mishnah Yud Bet. All your actions should be l'shem shemayim, for the right reason. So what does that mean? Rambam, in his commentary on the Mishnah, says that all your activities, your eating, your drinking, your sleeping, shouldn't be done for your personal pleasure, but because they allow you to better serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? So Rambam makes, for example, that if a person's feeling down or depressed, you could use music or some leisure activity to lift you up. To lift you up as a tool for uplifting yourself. That's what we talked about. Maintaining a healthy body, Rambam spoke about as an element of this idea. So one has to then weigh in. I would say as follows. Again, it goes back to your kavanah, why you go to the game. Sure, you go to the game to enjoy. Do you come back afterwards a more balanced person, a healthier person, a normal person who can now sit down and learn nicely like a mensch? Do you need it? One needs to weigh whether one needs it or not. Is it a good outlet? Is it a healthy outlet? And in that sense, it'll function. It'll function as a mitzvah. It'll function as a mitzvah. Okay. But what about organized sports? Okay, that may be the argument for going to a game here or there. But let's talk about organized sports in general. So you should know when organized sports was first forming in Israel, pre-1948, there was a great protest from many rabbis decrying the fact that the sporting events were being held on Shabbos. Rav Avram Tzvi Yehuda's son. Rav Avram Yitzchak Kook, thank you. Rav Avram Yitzchak Kook, the first Ashkenaz chief rabbi of Israel, decided to focus on the more positive aspect of the sporting events. And he writes in his Orot Amud Pei, Shetzi'irei Yisrael, the young of Israel, are oskim ba be'eretz Yisrael. They do it lachazek et gufam, in order to strengthen their body, bishvil yot banitzim, to be strong people, to be strong. He wrote about the importance of developing physical strength to help build Israel. He didn't view sports as a form of leitzanis or schok, but rather a healthy way to channel one's energy. The Badats, led by Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, published a letter attacking Rav Kook's position and was very against this. Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote a tshuva that was published after he passed away that said that attending sporting events may in fact be Moshav Leitzim. Interesting enough. Be'elush nikro teatra and shosim imyonei schok, mischokim, places that we misachek sport. It's not a problem of chukoseim lo selechu. It's not a problem of following after their ways. However, lo rak darm shel pritzus, but it's meaningless. The pritzus and meaningless stuff is happening there, so that would be a tough one. Or Moshe Feinstein didn't seem to be in favor of it. Dr. Gurak has a book where he talks about Judaism in America. he says that Rav Moshe Feinstein's own yeshiva did participate in organized sporting events in the 1950s. Different ways of looking at it. Another issue is the idea of idolizing sports figures. The Gemara says that the prohibition of lo sechanim is a prohibition against, admiring, looking up to these types of people. And the Gemara says that does not apply if you're admiring the beauty of creation through that people. And I think that's what we said before. That's the idea. They're using it to appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar ma rabu masecha. If you say, how amazing are your creations, God, then that's something else. That would be something different. It would seem that idolizing sports figures would fall under this isser. But admiring their talents as a form of beauty of Hashem's creation, that would be mutter. That would be mutter. Rav Kook says, similarly, to learn something from them. For example, the famous idea that everybody and their cousin learns from Wayne Gretzky. Right? Wayne Gretzky in his biography says he was asked, how come you were so great? You weren't the fastest, you weren't the smartest, you weren't the strongest. What made you so great? He said, because everybody else was following the puck, I was thinking, where's the puck going to be? That's a nice idea. From that, you're able to learn about projecting and Ezu Cham Haros Anolad, who is wise, one who could see the outcome. I think from that idea, that's what Rav Kook is saying. You could learn from their actions. You could learn from their actions. Let's move on to a different area within sports. Part of the pitfalls of sports is, what about performance-enhancing drugs? Performance-enhancing drugs. What would Judaism say about that? Let's take a little drink here. Okay. The Gemara says that we learn the concept of, right, it says, Im yakum, the pasuk says, Im yamkum v'hitalech b'chutz al mishanto, v'neke hamaker ashito yitain v'rapo yerape. You shall surely heal that someone who is sick. So the Gemara in Brachos 60b says, the Tani debe Rabbi Shmuel, v'rapo yerape, mikan shenitna reshus l'rofe l'rapos. Here the Torah is giving permission for a doctor to heal. For a doctor to heal. So why does the doctor need permission to heal? Why would he not? He's supposed to save people's lives. Why would he not be allowed to heal? What does it mean? What's the idea here? So there's a few interpretations. One interpretation is Rashi. Rashi says one might have thought that if God gave somebody this disease, we should let nature take its course. One might have said that, by the way. You know that. There are some religions that really believe that if God has given a disease, if he wants it gone, he'll heal it. You can't have anybody else intervene. Rashi says the Torah is telling you, rapo yerape, to teach that. We don't believe that. Judaism does not believe that. Absolutely does not. Tosfos take it a step further. They note that the double language of rapo yerape, that if it's just mentioned it once, we would only think it allows us to treat patients externally, wounds. But now that the pasuk mentions it twice, we learn that somebody could treat internal diseases as well. That's what Tosfos says. Comes the Rosh in his Tosfos HaRosh, says of this. Hikshe harav Yaakov Orleans. He quotes the Re from Orleans. Pshita, lama lo yirapeh harofim. Why would I think they couldn't help? What is it talking about? Haksiv ashivo solo v'darshinan zohi hashavas gufo. And then it says, lo ta'amod al dam reacha. And the answer is, shenitan reshus larapos b'schar. Shechayav lasot b'chinam d'tayim deprecious. What it means is, it's teaching you that a physician is permitted to treat a patient and charge money. Now, in the end, the Rosh likes Tosfos' answer better, but he quotes you this Re Orleans, that without the v'rapo yerape, I would not have known that a doctor could charge money. That's the point. The Ibn Ezra, different pshat. V'rapo yirapeh. La'ois shenoten reshus larofim l'rapeh hamakos v'aptsoim shiur b'chutz. That it's a license for physician only extend to treating external wound and not internal. You have to understand, the time of the Ibn Ezra, doctors treating internal wounds were a disaster. They probably had a very limited success rate and probably were better off for them not messing with it back in the 12th century. Ramban is the final presentation I'll give you today on that idea of what is being taught to us from V'rapo Yirapeh. Ramban is teaching you that the license only applies to the doctor to treat someone who lacks proper emunah, right? The patient should rely on God to heal them. That's an interesting and unique comment of the Ramban, quite controversial. Okay, what that does show you, though, what is clear, is that there is some area of medicine that may not be allowed here. The question is, what is it? There's a Shilas and Shuvas Sharei Tzedek. It's written by Rav Menachem Mordechai Panet in the 19th century. So he writes that this license for a doctor is limited to treatment of diseases of pain, but it does not extend to treating fertility. And he doesn't know what the whole heter of treating fertility is, how it's even allowed. By the way, the ship has sailed since then, and almost every posek allows treatment of fertility. But I'm just trying to point out this Mar Mokum because it shows you that what they were understanding is that there is some line, there is some area that the doctor cannot involve himself in. The Tzitz Eliezer, Rav Waldenberg, agrees that there are certain areas that are beyond the scope of what he can do, but it doesn't apply to fertility treatments, right? He doesn't think it applies. He goes in a different direction. Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein says someone who is supposed to eat on Yom Kippur, they're too sick. This prohibits them from inserting an IV tube so that they could fast. One should never think that's permissible. One is not allowed to do that. You understand? One can't say, oh, since I have to eat, maybe I'll just stick an IV tube. No, Moshe Feinstein is not allowed. Okay. Beyond that idea of Rapo Yirapeh, we're obligated to guard our health. That being the case, many of these performance enhancement drugs, one needs to be careful that they, of course, impair our health. So therefore, one needs to weigh the risks. One needs to weigh the risks associated with it. So that's part of it. First of all, a number of risks that are associated with performance enhancement drugs. Hypertension, circulatory problems, liver abnormalities, addiction to drugs. So that's a problem, obviously. It goes without saying. Hold on. Okay. Now, the question is, are you allowed to risk some area of health for livelihood? Right? For a parnasa. The Gemara, for example, let me pull out the Gemara here. Bab Mitzia Kuf Yud Beis Amid Aleph. Ve'elav hu noses nafshe nema Allah zebekevin idal be'ilan masras atzman lamisa lo al schara. The Gemara maintains that a laborer may risk his life while working. A laborer may risk his life while working. How far does that go? So Rabbi Yecheskel Landau, 18th century scholar that knows the Yehuda, says that only applies to earning a livelihood. Why? Because earning a livelihood is something worthwhile to risk your life for. But for leisure, that's prohibited. You have to understand also, in the 18th century, the labor laws did not preclude the idea of coming home safely from work. Therefore, it was a basic assumption that many of the jobs are going to have some risk. Working in a coal mine, so on and so forth, you had no other option. If you didn't work, you didn't eat. You didn't eat, you're going to die anyways. So they had to be some level of risk. He discusses over here hunting for sport. He says if you're a professional hunter, it's mutter, but for leisure, that's totally usher. That's totally usher. So one might think that this is their livelihood in a sport where it's allowed. That's difficult, especially when we're talking about someone who already has a $4 million salary and they wanted to increase it to like $8 million. That's already, not so kosher. Okay, the other issue to be weighed here is you are going to be gaining a competitive edge. And that would be a problem. Gaining doing it in an unfair way, unfair competition. There are some good Meir Makomos on unfair competition. Rav Meir Eisenstadt in the Sefer Ponim Me'iris says that it's normally it's usher to engage in competitive practices that give the competitor an unfair advantage, even if the consumers all benefit. The only place where the rabbis would allow it is when it's going to drive down the market price of grains by, for example, forcing the wholesalers to supply more to the marketplace. Okay, there's a lot of area in there to discuss, but I don't want to get into that so much right now. It's beyond the scope of our discussion for right now. Let's move in a different direction here. One needs to be careful in the area of sports in the following way, about the following idea, is it brings out certain traits as well, athletics, that may be less appreciated from the eyes of halacha, from the eyes of Jewish values. The Stipler writes in his commentary on the Parsha on the Midah of anger, of Katz, that Rashi says as they would hit the frogs by the plagues, right? Rashi assumes, like the opinion of the Gemara, that it started with one central frog, and from there was more. That every time they hit the frog, there was more. So why keep hitting it? So the historians point out that the god of reproduction in Egypt was the frog, right? And that's the midah of anger, that they kept hitting it. You know, when you're just doing something and you're doing something, and it's like, what's the point? Why are you doing that? Because that's the midah of anger. You just lose yourself. I saw Wayne Dyer, who passed away this year, great self-help guru. He had a story about a guy who was driving, he said he was driving down the highway, and there was traffic, and somebody lightly bumps him. And he says 2 minutes later, because of more tailgating, another hit. And Wayne Dyer says about himself that he's starting to get furious. He gets hit a third time. He takes out his club, stops his car on the highway, walks over to the car behind him. The window rolls down, and he sees it's a good-looking woman. And suddenly he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I back up and hit you? And suddenly the anger goes away. And Wayne Dyer uses this as an illustration to show you that we can choose to turn on and off our anger. I mean, I've heard this phrase a different way. A guy in an elevator keeps getting hit in the back by a stick. Finally, he turns around, he's about to punch the guy in the face, and he sees in the elevator, it's a blind man who had a walking stick and didn't realize he was poking him. And you're not going to get angry anymore. The guy had you could turn on and off your anger. George Carlin, the comedian, says, baseball is a happy time. Begins in the spring. Football begins in the fall when things are dying, right? It's a ferocious sport. In most sports, offense runs the ball. In baseball, defense runs the ball. Other sports have a coach. Baseball has a manager, right? That's the elegance of baseball versus other sports. Baseball's played on a diamond. Football's on a soldier field. It's about fighting. Baseball, you wear a cap. Football is helmets. Baseball is about who's up. Football's about downs. Football has smashing and pile-ups. Baseball has sacrifice. Football plays rain or shine. Baseball needs good weather. Baseball has no time limit. Football has sudden death. Quarterback has aerial assault and deadly accuracy in the face of a blitz. Even if he has to use shotguns, baseball, the object is to be safe at home. And so you see there's a chilek between the violence and the kas that's in different sports. One has to be careful not to learn from that element. It brings out a certain very negative element. But again, there are positives. I remember once in New York, there was a former football player, Jewish football player, Alan Weingret, who came for Shabbos, and he was sitting there, and he was there in Shul 10 minutes before Daf Yomi started. He was the first one there. So I asked him why he's so early. He said, Jimmy Johnston said, you're not 10 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. That's a value. That's an idea. That's something you could take from sports and carry it over into our religious life. Carry it over. Another idea from Jimmy Johnson, I just clipped right before. Jimmy Johnson gave to his players before the 1993 Super Bowl. He said, I told my guys that if I laid a 2x4 across the room, everybody there would walk across it and not fall, because our focus would be that we were going to walk the 2x4. But if I put that same 2x4 10 stories high between two buildings, only a few would make it. Why? Because the focus would be on falling. Focus is everything. The team that is more focused today is the team that will win this game. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable idea. The Cowboys won the game 52-17. But it's idea about focusing and blocking everything else out. I mean, you look at the amazing thing. Whenever you go visit Reb Chaim Kanievsky Shlita, you should live and be well. You see the houses, people coming in and out and coming and going like a train station. And he is so focused on his learning. He is laser focused. So again, do I need a football game to teach him that? I can watch Reb Chaim Kanievsky. But the point is, there are some values that do come out from these things that we're able to learn. I want to slide over to a little different area here within the realm of sports. By the way, while I have it, I do want to pull up here. I thought it was just beautiful. Kobe Bryant's letter, his retirement letter, poetry thing. Kobe Bryant, poem. Here we go. Farewell poem. It's loading. Okay. Here it is. Hold on, this is the one the other people wrote for him. Here it is, got it. Okay, form of a poem. The end is beautiful. It goes, my heart can take the pounding, my mind can handle the grind, but my body knows it's time to say goodbye. That idea is about acknowledging the real, being realistic about where one is in their place in life. That's very important, and it's about letting go and releasing. Sometimes we hold on to things into obsession. Some people don't give up their positions or their jobs in the time when they should step aside at a certain point. And even though those around them are suffering, one needs to be able to let go. That's amazing. Another idea is we both know no matter what I do next, I'll always be that kid with the rolled up socks, garbage can in the corner, 5 seconds on the clock, ball in my hands. That's the idea of also retaining a youthful outlook in the world. As we get older, we become more jaded. We become more, I've seen that already, or I'm too tired for this stuff. And to be able to maintain that innocence, that's one of the pshatim in the pasuk, Vahanar einenu iti, right? And the youth is not with me. What does it mean that youthfulness is no longer with us? We can't give up on that youthfulness, that vibrancy. We talk about doing mitzvahs with his chachas, with newness, with freshness. I mean, that could be learned from this poem. I love the line, you asked for my hustle, I gave you my heart. And that's a beautiful idea, that idea of giving our heart to Yiddishkeit. Some people just give the actions. God wants to do this, okay, I'll get a lulav, I'll get the cheapest one. I'll build a sukkah, all right, I'll build whatever. No, you give your heart. God wants you to give your heart. So that's this idea. There's beautiful milas to look up to, the positive side of what some of these players have been able to achieve and their outlook. One can learn from the positive, the more positive elements. Okay. We have a few more minutes in the sports shiur. I want to talk about something I always thought was very religious about sports was the sacrifice fly. Right? What's a sacrifice fly in baseball? In baseball, a sacrificial hit, also called a sacrificial bunt, I'm quoting from the baseball dictionary, is the act of deliberately bunting the ball in a manner that allows a runner on base to advance to another base. The batter is almost sacrifice, but sometimes reaches base due to an error or fielder's choice. So is that noble or is that nebuch? How does Judaism look at the sacrifice fly? So Yehuda, in last week's Parsha, stands up in Parshas Vayigash and displays his heroism. He's going to sacrifice himself on behalf of his brother Binyamin, on behalf of the sanity now of his father Yaakov. Now, by baseball, it's a little different. By baseball, it's almost involuntary. Why? Because the manager is calling the play. He's demanding the play. So the baseball hitter is now following the system that he's given. So how do we look at it? There's a Bulgarian-French philosopher named Julia Kristeva. She says like this: sacrifice is an offering that out of substance creates meaning for the other and consequently for the social group that it's dependent on. Or as Yogi Berra put it, when you sacrifice, you stand beside your teammates by putting them in front of yourself. By putting them in front of yourself. So that is an idea of sacrifice. Yehuda steps up. Now he had no choice. He couldn't come back to Yaakov. But at the end of the day, he put himself at risk. He did. On behalf for his father and for Binyamin. So that is the art of the sacrifice fly. I think Judaism and baseball have a lot in common. There's a lot. That's why you always find about classic Rosh yeshivas who love baseball. For example, 1991, Mark McGuire was chasing Roger Maris's home run streak. You could taste the excitement. Baseball was beginning its comeback from the dead. And the most untouchable record was finally being encroached upon. Home run number 60 was a towering blast into left field. But it was marred by minutes of controversy that happened right afterwards. Why? The umpires and the managers were debating whether it was 1 inch to the left of the pole or was it 1 inch to the right. Who cares? Give the guy the home run. It was a huge towering shot. No, because baseball, every detail counts. That's halacha. Halacha, every detail. You don't start playing games. You have to ask, is 412, how big is the lulav, the hadassim, the aravas? Is this blettel on the esrog a psul or is it not a psul? It all counts. It all counts important. Because anything significant in life, the details do matter. What? Imagine you go to shul. Right outside shul, there's the coat rack. 25 coats. You don't say, I'll take the third one. It's like mine. Looks like mine a little bit. What's the difference? Some buttons in it. No, if you didn't pay attention to the details, your coat's gone. You lost your coat. You need to know. You have to be, it shows that you care about something when you pay attention to the details. Your spouse makes a cholent. You don't just comment, it's a good cholent. You comment on the details of the cholent. The attention, the love is shown through the details. The same with halacha. Everything changes in one little detail. Think of this is an extreme example. We take the Challenger. At the end of the day, the Challenger exploded because one little bolt was off around one of the coils. One little thing and nothing makes all the difference. That makes all the difference. I think the halacha works the same way, as does baseball. Another comparison. W.P. Kinsella, the author of Shoeless Joe, wrote a book called The Baseball Confederacy. It's a magical book that talks about a fantasy baseball game, which played for years on end because they never broke the tie. And the book makes a very interesting point that baseball is the only sport where a ball could go on and on for miles and it still not be out of bounds. It's still in play. There's no boundary until it lands. So if I would hypothetically hit a baseball in a way where gravity ceases to exist and it travels in the air in center field for miles and miles, it's still in play. A baseball game also. If it's tied, it's going to keep going and going until something gives. Basketball games, may go into triple overtime or whatever, but once every couple years, you mamish have a baseball game that goes 25 innings, limitless. Baseball is like without boundaries. I think that if that is something that Judaism has in common. For example, Rav Aryeh Kaplan makes the point that marriage has infinite ripples in time. 2 parents become 4 grandparents. That becomes 8 grandparents. That becomes 16, 32. 10 generations later has produced on average 1,024 people. 20 generations produced on average 1,048,576. 30 generations, 1,073,074,824. That idea of what you do right now has such an impact down the generations, that infinite sense is very much what makes baseball relatable to Judaism. Another idea. In Judaism, we have the idea of leaving, I'll say this. We know that Avraham left his home. Lech lecha, lech lecha. In baseball, that same idea of leaving home. You can never grow until you first leave home. And only then he comes back around and more triumphant the second time around, that it becomes a run in baseball. That's Judaism. You need to leave your comfort zone in order to become great. You can't just stay in the same place. One needs to grow, go off to yeshiva, develop, become a significant person. Another connection. The sukkah. Sukkah's no good if it's raining. Sukkah's no good if it's raining. Baseball game, if it's raining, the game is off. Another element is someone who doesn't know much about baseball will tell you baseball's boring. It's boring. Nothing's happening. I think someone who doesn't know anything about Judaism looks at it and says, what's going on? Judaism, shul, nothing. But if you learn the halachas, you learn in depth, you sit with the Gemara, you sit with the Bava Metzia, you take it seriously, you see it's tremendously deep, every little movement. The same thing on a baseball field. You don't see it happening, but right now at every moment there could be 7 or 8 plays on the field. The manager is signaling the guy at first base to move back because he got a left-handed hitter. And it's night now. When he's left-handed at night, there's a chance he'll hit it in center field. Move it. There's tremendous profundity. And there's all that going on. In a baseball game at the same time. And that's the idea. There's so much more to say about the connection between sports and Torah, sports and Judaism. John Wooden, UCLA, the major reason why UCLA's basketball program had the reputation of being the greatest in the world is John Wooden. He retired in 1975. That was his 27th season as the Bruins head coach, as the winningest record in basketball history. UCLA won 10 NCAA championships in 12 years, including 7 in a row. He has the consecutive win streak, NCAA, of 88 in a row over the course of 4 seasons. John Wooden has so many great sayings, which I think are, I'll just review his 7-point creed. His 7-point creed as follows. 1, be true to yourself. I mean, that's being emistic. 2, make each day your masterpiece. That's about living arichas yomim, making every day its best. Help others. That's chesed. Make friendship a fine art. O chavrusa o mitusa. Give me my chavrusa or give me death. Drink deeply from good books, he said. What? Svarim. Take a lesson from beautiful Svarim. He said, build a shelter against a rainy day. Rav Volbe talks about in his Alei Shor that there's Yemei Chashchus, days of darkness when you got to hunker down. And number 7th, pray for guidance and give thanks for your blessing every day, John Wooden said. That's tefillah, that's bakasha, that's hodah, that's expressing gratitude through our prayer. I'm excited that you've been joining along and watching longestshir.com, this 18-hour Torah class that we're just we're plowing ahead, going for the record. We're doing it to support Jewish education. We appreciate everything you can do. We have a different contest going on more or less every hour. For those who are staying on, keep the donations coming. We're seeing amazing numbers happen here, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Stick around. Our next shiur after this is going to be our 5 a.m. slot. What is Kabbalah and why do celebrities care so much? Really getting into some deep Torah next hour. And we're getting deeper and deeper. We're going to have a special pre-Shachris pep talk at 6 a.m. I'll be continuing with explanatory davening once davening starts. So we really aren't taking any breaks. We're going from shiur to shiur to shiur till we end ultimately with a big siyum with all the children who have mastered 18,000 questions on the book of Bereshit. That's going to take place at 6 p.m. I hope you could join us live if you're around, or not, you could stay online, longestshir.com. I thank you.